Thank you, Pratibha, for teeing up this fireside conversation. And now, without further ado, it's my privilege to have the opportunity to dive in with Arianna. For those of you who are tuning in who may not know Arianna's bio, I'd love to begin there, and then Arianna will jump into our conversation. Arianna Huffington is the founder, of course, of the Huffington Post. And today she's founder and CEO of Thrive Global, author of 15 books amongst an incredible list, Arianna, of well-deserved accolades. I know you've been recognized, named by Time Magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in the world, and by Forbes on the most powerful women's list. I'd also like to add that we are honored, Arianna, to know you as an Unreasonable mentor. And personally, I'm just grateful for our friendship. So needless to say, it's a real highlight of my day to see your face and to be here with you now. If you're open to it, I don't know what the tradition is, but do you think we could start this conversation with a quick Unreasonable tradition?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So one thing we do is at the start of every meeting that we host at Unreasonable, we always start with a moment of silence, just a chance to take 3 deep breaths, right? And what I'd love to do is give you the privilege to break that moment of silence and to allow all our viewers who have been tuning in, for the last almost hour and a half to pause, to take some deep breaths, and then for you just to check in on how you're feeling right now. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. And I love that. It's a fantastic tradition. We know that it takes 60 seconds to course correct from stress. Stress is unavoidable. So let's all focus on our breath.
Perfect.
And let's take some deep inhales and deep exhales for 60 seconds. I think this is about a minute, although we could stay here a lot longer.
I could do 10 minutes, no problem.
That's no problem. And thank you for this tradition. I love it. At Thrive, we have our own, what we call protocols around how we start meetings, focusing on our breathing, including the box breathing, which is the Navy SEAL breathing tradition of 4 deep inhales, pause to the count of 4, and exhale to the count of 4.
Yeah.
Good enough for Navy SEALs. It's good enough for unreasonable people.
It's good enough for all of us. And one thing we do, Arianna, and thank you for holding that moment, is that at the end of it, we always just check in on where your energy is. So how are you feeling in this current moment?
I'm feeling really grateful. I'm grateful to be with you. I'm grateful to be in Los Angeles with my 2 daughters and sister.
Yeah.
I feel this is an amazing time of challenges and pain, but also blessings and an opportunity to reimagine our world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would love to dig into that in this conversation. It's an interesting moment. I don't know. I was talking to a friend the other day. I said, I don't know if I'm, working from home or if I'm sleeping at the office right now, right? In this new COVID moment. How are you approaching, and how do you encourage others to approach this sense of balance in this odd time of working from home and not having the same boundaries that we normally have?
Well, the truth of the matter is that even before COVID, our lives were fueled by burnout, stress, breathlessness. So we now have no boundaries at home. But the truth is that millions of people had no boundaries because we carry our work with us.
Yep.
Wherever we go, laptops, phones. So we find at Thrive that it's more important than ever to establish certain micro steps, as we call them, to focus on what matters, to course correct from stress. And we have hundreds of micro steps, but a couple of my favorites are, first of all, to pick a time when we stop consuming coronavirus news.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I hear from so many people in so many companies we're working with that if you continue consuming coronavirus news through the night, it's much harder to surrender to sleep. It's much harder to really unwind and let your brain slow down.
Yeah.
And another one is to really separate ourselves from our phone when we go to bed.
Yeah, especially when we go to bed, right? Yeah.
The truth is that there is no real ending to our work day.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to declare an arbitrary end.
Yeah.
And we recommend that the arbitrary end is turning off our phone and charging it outside our bedroom.
Yeah. Simple micro steps, right, can go a long ways. I know you've, in an essence, almost devoted your life's work now with Thrive, to these questions around wellness and culture and mental health and resilience. Can I ask why, right? To somebody who hasn't had these conversations yet, right? Why is this such important work?
Well, for me, it started with a personal wake-up call in 2007, 2 years into building the Huffington Post, when I collapsed from exhaustion, burnout, and broke my cheekbone. And that was my recognizing that burnout is actually an epidemic, that millions of people around the world are burned out. Yeah. I started covering all these issues at the Huffington Post, and in 2016, I decided I wanted to go beyond awareness to action to help people not just learn about why sleep and breathing and gratitude and all these micro steps matter, but also how to go about changing their behaviors. And so that was when I left the Huffington Post to launch Thrive Global. It's going to be 4 years in November. And basically, it's a behavior change technology company where we built a platform that helps employees of companies. It's an enterprise software platform, adopt these new habits gradually and see the impact on their health, their mental health, and their productivity.
Yeah. We just heard from 10 remarkable CEOs, right? Me being a young CEO myself with a relatively small team, but this is, I think that there's arguably almost not more of an important topic as a CEO to focus on. And oftentimes it's been a checkbox for the HR department, right? Do we have programs on wellness? Yes, right? How have companies seen, the adoption of the Thrive platform and of these techniques around micro steps actually impact, the productivity? You just mentioned on that. You mentioned about that on their employees, on their teams, and what's the difference kind of before or after, really integrating this into their culture?
Well, it's actually amazing to see how COVID has accelerated the recognition that health, wellness, and mental health of employees are not nice to haves. They're imperative, they're central. And we found, our work dramatically accelerating, closing deals in 48 hours rather than 2 or 3 months. And that's because the head of people, the CHRO in a company is now the most important executive right next to the CEO. Yeah. And decisions about the health and wellness of employees are critical. And I'm thrilled that the 10 companies celebrated today are actually focusing on solving problems related to COVID, because I feel that's really what we are also doing at Thrive right now. And also it's wonderful to see Barclays supporting their work. But for us at Thrive, we are recognizing that when companies are working, say, on helping employees go back to offices or work remotely from home, there is obviously a technical infrastructure element, elevator protocols or plexiglass or whatever, but there is also a human layer, and that's where we come in. You can figure out all the physical safety, all the technical infrastructure, but if you don't figure out, how am I doing? How are the employees doing? If they're stressed and anxious and fearful, it's going to affect the productivity. So even if you didn't care about them as people, the data is incontrovertible. It affects how productive they are, how creative, how empathetic, as we are trying to build more inclusive and diverse workplaces. Empathy is also key.
Yeah. Arianna, you just touched on an important topic, and I wish we had an hour for this conversation. We just talked about diversity and inclusion within the teams, and I think we'd be doing the world a disservice right now if we didn't acknowledge the systemic racial inequity that's existed for 400 years here in the U.S., but's really come into the front of conversation for everyone. I know you recently wrote an article titled, I'm actually looking at it, What the Civil Rights Movement Can Teach Us About Self-Care. I just love you. Can you share a little bit about your perspective on that?
Yes. It was really interesting during this time of an unprecedented and long overdue focus on racial injustice, this moment of reckoning, to see that self-care during the civil rights movement was really part of how they saw sustaining the struggle. Yeah. And it was not like what it has become in many ways. If you go to Instagram and you see hashtag self-care, it's more likely to be about bubble baths and facial creams, nothing wrong with those, rather than how do you sustain yourself in order to have a big impact, whether it's in changing the world or in creating an amazing company. So in a sense, the fact that, say, Rosa Parks was doing yoga and meditating until she was 92, or Martin Luther King often spoke about the need basically to connect with the deeper part of ourselves. That's also very true for entrepreneurs. Yeah. Because, if you're going to build a successful company that will have a big impact on COVID, on the world, you need to be able to sustain yourself. Yeah. Can't just happen with you being always on, taking no time to recharge. It's, as they say on airplanes, put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others.
Yeah. I think it's a common challenge, right? For the entrepreneurs we just heard from, who are devoting their work towards solving a societal challenge that oftentimes they can put themselves second. But in the end, we're not going to achieve the impact that we want over a lifetime unless we focus inward first. So I think it's beautiful that the message Rosa Parks and MLK sent by doing that themselves against one of the toughest struggles that we're still facing today. Arianna, I know we don't have a lot of time, but you're doing us such a favor. It's such a privilege to have you as a keynote and as a speaker for this event. I'd love for viewers who are tuning in, for our community at Unreasonable, to be able to repay the favor. I think part of self-care is also asking for help, or giving ways in which people can become a part of the journey with you. So how can anybody tuning into this join you on your journey with Thrive, or how could we help?
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we are hiring very fast. So if you know any good engineers, product managers, designers, technical recruiters, salespeople, send them my way.
Yeah.
Arianna at thriveglobal.com. Have offices in New York, San Francisco, and LA, but it doesn't really matter anymore, right? People can work from anywhere. So that would be amazing, but also keep doing what you're doing. And if we can help in any way through our micro steps, our behavior change platform, please let me know. Thank you so much. And thank you, everything. And thank you, Barclays, for supporting these great entrepreneurs.
Yeah, Arianna, you are easily one of my favorite people to have a conversation with. It's been such a pleasure to share this time with you. And to close out, I'm going to pass it over to Stephen Doherty over at Barclays Group, who's the head of corporate relations, who has a very exciting announcement. But thank you again, Arianna, for everything you're doing for this community and for the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.